All right, welcome back to the fifth video in our 3D Racer tutorial series. This one is about adding an enemy AI and some dynamic waypoints for an enemy car. So I'm going to get straight into it. So in your project folder, tab in the bottom, you go into standard assets, and there was two cars under vehicles. So vehicles, car, prefabs. You have car waypoint, and this is a pre-made car for our enemy car. So let's go ahead and go and find our car. Oh yeah, because our car has all these crazy camera things going on. Might just click on Sky Car. There you go. I'm probably just going to drag this one straight into the scene next to our car. I'm going to take my vehicle and move it over. Yeah. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, can I do it? Yeah, there you go. That looks okay. Save that. Let's go find car waypoint based. And I'm going to rotate that to kind of set it in the same position that my player car is. I'm going to move it over for now just to kind of get it close so I can see it in my game view some. That looks okay for what we're doing. Okay. So the way that this thing works, it already has a pre-built effect on it. I want to give it a different name though. I'm going to call it EnemyCar01. Press return. And you'll see that as a child of it, somewhere in here, is it under colliders? Sky Car? Can't remember where it's at. If I look at this, I know there's a waypoint system built into it already. Oh, there it is, under helpers. You'll see there's a waypoint target. And currently, it's actually like stationed all the way over here. It's actually a child of the car. And if I look at EnemyCar01, if I scroll down, car AI control, it has all of this stuff here to help us. Circuit, so it's looking for a waypoint circuit here. And its current target is the waypoint target object, which is already selected here. So if I press play right now, it's going to basically turn on itself, trying to find this point here, because that's its next point, which it won't be able to do because that object's all the way over here as part of, the game object itself. Let me save that real quick. So I'm going to also change the tag on this thing from player. I'm going to create a new tag. Let's build a new one. I'm going to call it Enemy Car. And I'm just going to actually create a specific tag for this one called EnemyCar01. And as you guys know from experience, that the tag does not apply automatically when you create it. You need to go and put it on there. And I will save again. And there's some child colliders here as well. So here, I'm going to make sure that it has that as well. Let's make sure all of them have that. Nope. Just make sure all the child colliders have that EnemyCar01, because we're going to be looking for collision later on. So I'm going to save that. Alright, so the way we're going to do this, essentially we're doing basically a flexible waypoint system. I've seen this done a lot of different ways. This is the way I've done it a lot of the times. And looking at the tutorial series that I'm kind of borrowing a lot of this from, this is how he does it too. And I like it because it's a dynamic system that you can change easily, allowing you to have a flexible level of difficulty. We will talk about it. Might include a system here where we can choose the level of difficulty by putting a number in and moving these waypoints. But let's start off by giving it a, we're going to start putting a bunch of these waypoints. So I'm going to go over here to the hierarchy, and I'm going to add a 3D object. And I'm going to go with a sphere. Alright, and I'm going to rename this thing into WP_01. Waypoint 01. I shouldn't have over 100 of these, so this number of points is going to be fine. And I'm going to turn off the collider for now, the sphere collider that's on it. And I want to move this up so that it's on the ground itself, right above the ground, and I'm going to place it all the way around the track. I need to do this multiple times, so I'm going to move this one. This is basically going to be the places where my enemy car is going to be driving, and so the car is going to go directly towards the first, it's going to take the straightest path possible to this place, so I don't have to put a bunch of them out until I start getting into these curves or these turns. So I'm going to put one right here. Then I'm going to duplicate that, Command D. I'm going to rename that one to 0, 2. And I might put it over here to this. Move my camera a little bit. Like right about here. And continuously sort of place them in the middle of the track. You're going to continue this until you get all the way around the entire track. So I'm going to fast forward the video and I'll see you when that's done. Okay, I've finished placing all of mine around the track. I like the way they generally set out. Some tips I kind of realized along the way was if the more points you have, obviously, the better the driving skills of the enemy car is going to be. You can finally tune those. And we will do more tuning of this once we get back, but especially in curves, adding more of them will give a very defined turn, but also kind of gets rid of a little bit of the variance of the game. So having a couple points in a turn is very helpful, but you don't need to put tons and tons of them down. I ended up going with only 16 in this one. My first game only had 8, and I thought it was a simple track. 16 feels like a lot to me. You don't want to overdo it, but this should be fine for your very first one. So I'm going to double click on Waypoint 01, very first one for me. And I'm going to add a child. So clicking on it, control right click. I'm going to create a child 3D object cube. And I'm going to call this thing tracker. And tracker is going to be a little bit larger. I'm going to give it a scale of 1.2 all the way across. 1.2 and 1.2. So I might need to lift it up just a little bit here. And I'm going to set the collider to be an is trigger. So we're going to be using this cube to tell whenever our enemy goes to this point, this cube is going to move to the next, and our player is going to follow the cube to the next point. So these points are going to tell the cube where to go, and the cube tells the car where to go. So it'll be basically like a 2-point system here. For our sake, let's go ahead and go back to assets and to materials. And I'm going to create a new material for this. Control right click, create a material, and I'm going to call it red matte. And I'm going to go with change the albedo on that to like a nice red and drag it onto it so it's going to be easy to see. All right. And I want to also uncouple this. I don't want this to be a child of this waypoint 1. We want to be able to move on its own. But I originally made it a child so we can easily set the position. So tracker is its own object. So let's go make a new C# script. And the name of the script is going to be called EnemyCar01 tracker, which is a long script name, but I want to be descriptive because we're going to have to play with some naming here. So let's open that up in Visual Studio. All right, for this one, I'll need, the only boilerplate that I need is going to be my update. So I want to get rid of void start. Nothing's going to happen in the start, and just in the update, it's going to be checking to see if what the waypoint number is, and then setting up the next one to be where we need to go. So what variables would we need? Well, we obviously want to get the tracker object. So that's a public game object. And I'm just going to just call it tracker. OBJ. That's what I'll go with. Tracker object. And we also need to know all of the waypoints. So I need to list all of these. Public game object. And I'll just say WP01. And I'm just going to copy and paste these, numbering them all the way from 1, and for me, down to 16. So you should do the same thing. I'm just Great, I have all of my public game objects here. So the update is going to make sure that the tracker is moving to the next waypoint. So we're going to say the integer is 0. Oh, we need to create an integer. You know what? I didn't think about that. So we're going to basically use a number system. We're going to plus equals 1. We're going to set the value, every time we get to one of these points. So public int, since we're using whole numbers, and that's just going to call it waypoint tracker int. I'll just call it waypoint tracker. That'll just be a little simpler. So yeah, in the update, let's say if WP tracker is equal to equals right to 0, then we want to do something, and we basically want to set our tracker object where it's at tracker object dot transform dot position equal to whatever the next waypoint is, the next one in line. So set it to 0, then the tracker should be at number 1, and then whenever we get to 1, we'll make this go to 2. That seems pretty straightforward. So WP 01 dot transform dot position. Boom. Done. So we just got to continue doing this for every one of these, moving up ahead 1 every time. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so now I've made this long bracket an update, just checking for these numbers throughout the whole thing. So we need to make it an on-trigger event so that our car doesn't trigger this collision, right? We want to make it so that the checking for the tag of the colliders, so our car doesn't do it, just the enemy collider does. That's why we added the tag of EnemyCar01 onto our enemy's collider, right? So we're looking for that on-trigger event, and we're going to basically do it as a coroutine. We're going to do that because we also want to wait for seconds. And we want to make sure that we turn off the collider for a certain amount of time so the enemy car can get out of that space and not trigger it multiple times. So that's why we're going to hold it inside of a coroutine. So here's our update. Let me just do it outside of the update here. So IE numerator. And the name of this, I'm going to call it, well, it's going to be an on-trigger event. So on-trigger enter. Collider, and it says other. I'm going to just call it collision. I can't remember last year if we went with collision or other or whatever, but that's what I'm going to go with. So if collision dot game object, and this should be familiar with you guys, dot tag is equals to, and then you get the exact string name that you had earlier. So mine was EnemyCar01. Let's return this dot get component, and we want to get the box collider that's attached to this, and of course not the 2D one. Open, close your brackets. Dot enabled is going to be set to false. We're going to turn off that collider briefly in just a second. So we're going to turn it off, and then we'll have a wait for seconds in just a moment. And then we want to add 1 to our WP tracker number. So this is that plus equals. So then it'll make the tracker +1, and then moving our tracker game object up to the next position. If we ever get to our last one, we need to set that WP tracker number back to 0. So to do that, by the way, you're going to have an error here. We're going to fix this in a second. So we'll say if WP tracker is ever equal to your top number, for me, that is 16. Wait, am I missing my last one? No, that's fine. It's 16 for me. Then I need to set WP tracker equal to 0. There you go. Then that will send it back to the last point. Because even though I have 16 points, 15 sends it to 16. And then, yeah, did I do that right? I think I did. I'll check and make sure. And finally here at the end, I need to set the yield. Okay, wait, make sure I get this right. I screwed up every time. Return new. Look at me. I did it. I remembered it. Wait for seconds. And it's going to be I'm just going to have it wait a second. It doesn't need to be super brief. Let's just put in a 1. And let's do semicolon here. And then let's turn back on this box collider. So whatever game object this is attached to, Command C, Command V, and let's make it true again. So now let's save this. This is that whole script. Done and done. Command S. But yeah. Give it a second to compile. I'm just going to save Unity really quick before we get any further into this. And other than my null reference exception that we did last time, there's no errors, so that's where we want to be. So I'm going to create the tracker on the tracker object right here. We're going to add that script. So I'm going to hide some of this stuff real quick. I don't want to look at it right now. Okay. So project, and our where's my script at? Did I put it in the wrong spot? Enemy. Did I put it in the wrong place? Well, I'll drag it back out into assets. I don't know where I put that. I thought it was in my scripts folder. Maybe I overlooked it. Where's my script at? And I'll drag it into scripts if it wasn't there before. Weird. Alright, tracker, add my EnemyCar01 script onto it. And now I need to assign all of these waypoints from over here. So do that. And the very top one is your tracker object itself. Boom. So go ahead and do all that assigning. Okay, now we have all of this set up, and I'm going to go ahead and create a waypoint object to hold all of these waypoints now that we've got them where we want them to be. So I'm going to hit create empty, and I'm just going to call it waypoint you know, whatever. Just call it waypoints. And grab my top one, grab my bottom, I hold shift, click the bottom one, and then just drag them onto that name. And that way I can just hide that in the hierarchy and kind of clean this up some. I'll save again. Now we have all of these set up, but we also need to set up so our enemy car follows that tracker object. So under enemy car, on enemy car, I need to unlock my inspector here. It is on car AI control target. You need to set tracker as your target object and save again. So one way, this is kind of cool, like I think it was in Resident Evil 4, there was a way that they made the game more and more difficult based off learning, by placing enemies based on seeing how enemy players were going throughout the game. Like it was a very responsive sort of intelligent system using a dynamic style of laying out enemies. And so this way of you know, changing waypoints, now that we have these points out here, we can play with them and really get them to do the thing that we wanted to do. So I'm curious, let's just see if we can get this part to work. And then there's one more little thing I want to do in this video before we call it quits. So I'm hoping that this works. I'm really curious to see if the end of my waypoints works. Going from the last one to the first one. Okay, so I have a little issue here from 3. Let me see if I put it in the right spot. So from 3, transform that position on my tracker. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I wonder what I did wrong here. Let's press play again. Maybe it like hit it as if it weren't a on trigger event. Well, it worked. At that point, it did not work the way I wanted it to. So it's interesting it didn't work that one time and then it did this time. So I do need to like play with this object. I might need to bring this waypoint in some. Maybe that's too tight of a corner for the enemy car to pick up on. So you're just gonna have to fine tune these. Let me watch this one more time and see if it works any better. Okay, so clearly I need to put in some tighter waypoints here for this cart to make it around these curves, and you're probably going to do the same. One more thing you notice is that our enemy car is starting whenever the game starts. We did this very similarly to our car, right on the countdown timer. On countdown timer, let's make it so that, just like we did with our car, we're going to add in a new variable at the top called public EnemyCar controls, like this. Oh, game object. Because we're just going to do object-oriented stuff here. We're just going to use the game object and not call a specific script. Like we could put a boolean in that script and have it check to see if it's enabled and then turn it on. But let's just make it a little bit simpler for ourselves here. EnemyCar controls .get component looks very similar to this, except the name of this script on ours was on the enemy car's car AI control. Open close parentheses dot enabled equals true. Save this, and then back on our enemy car, let's make sure that we assign Well, let's turn off that car AI control. Turn that off. And then we need to assign this object onto our countdown. Where's our countdown manager? Where was that at? Start manager? Yeah. So it needs to know our car controls. So let's drag our enemy car here. And that should make it so that our enemy only starts after it reaches 0 again. Oh, well, that's a crash. Well, that might happen, but I'm pretty sure that this will work fine. I'm not going to re-record this video again. I'm going to go back and tune my waypoints. I would encourage you to do the same thing, and I'll see you in the next one.